Moving into section 3, I'm just going to cover some security concepts as they relate to networking. So some type of network attacks to be familiar with, we have the TCP SYN attack. This is a type of denial of service attack where an attacker sends a large number of SYN requests to the target server, and it's going to overwhelm that server's ability to respond, and it's going to lead to a DOS of that server for any legitimate person who is trying to reach out and establish a connection with it. If you remember, for our TCP three-way handshake, we had SYN packets be sent out first, then we had SYN ACK packets come back from the server, and then we had our acknowledgement packet send back from this is the client side, this is the server side. So in a TCP SYN attack, you are the attacker and you're sending a bunch of SYNs to one server. That server is going to reply with like, oh my God, all these people want to start a conversation with me. I need to acknowledge all of these people, and it's going to not be able to keep up with the number of SYN ACK packets it needs to reply with for the number of SYNs that are inbound. So it becomes overwhelmed and it's DOSed. It's denied from doing its jobs, denial of service, and it will go down trying to leverage all of the resources needed to respond to the sheer high volume number of SYN packets that were coming inbound. A LAN attack. This is another DOS attack where the attacker spoofs the source IP address and port number to send TCP SYN packets to the target system with the same source and destination IP address and port numbers, and that's going to confuse the server. It's going to cause it to crash or hang. Smurf attack and Fraggle attack are probably, if you could do 1, 2, and then 3 to kind of be familiar with, I would expect those to show up, especially in Security Plus or potentially as an interview question, being in the form of what's the difference between a Smurf attack and a Fraggle attack, or describe to me what a TCP SYN attack is. So we've covered TCP SYN attack, but Smurf attack, the buzzword for this one is it's going to send a large number of ICMP packets in the form of echo requests, so pings, and if you see in the diagram, it's going to have sent this from a spoofed IP address. The attacker is obviously not going to use their IP address that's allocated to their attacker's machine. They're going to spoof it to make it the IP address of the target machine that they're trying to DOS and bring down. So the attacker is going to send a large number of ping requests to a router's broadcast address. So remember, the broadcast address that we just memorized, right, was 255, 255, 255, 255, basically saying go to every single computer on your network and reply to my ping request with an echo reply. Since they're sending the echo request for ping to see, remember ping is for connectivity to see if a host is up, we need that echo reply to say, yep, I'm up, I'm good. And by sending the spoofed IP address to the network's broadcast to then go out to all of these devices are then going to ICMP echo reply back to that ping, and because they spoofed the IP to be the target machine, all of the echo replies are going to go straight to this target machine, and it's going to DOS it, and it's not going to be able to respond. It's just going to be completely overwhelmed with ping echo reply messages, and it's going to be DOSed that way. Now, the only difference between, just erase some of this, a Smurf attack and a Fraggle attack is instead of ICMP messages, so Smurf equals ping for ICMP, Fraggle is going to be UDP packets. So it's a variation of the Smurf attack where the attacker is now going to send a large number of UDP packets to the same network broadcast address, causing all the devices on the network to respond to that broadcast message and overwhelm the target system with that traffic. So it's not going to be an echo reply to the ping. It's just going to be a large number of UDP packets being responded to the target machine. The end result is still the same for it being denied. So any modern router, we just talked about ACLs, and it's some examples here of what you could write. We have our access list. We're writing to list number 100. We're going to deny all ICMP protocols for any source IP to any destination. Or we can deny an IP on any host trying to communicate or reply out to the destination of the broadcast. We shouldn't have any host on our network replying out to a broadcast message. That should only be going on within our LAN or something within our own network. A broadcast message never needs to be replied to at the router level. It just makes no sense. If we want to communicate out, we'll use our common protocols that we would use to establish the communication. There's no instance where you would ever need to be replying to a broadcast message that's coming in from outside of your network. So you can just write the rule that say deny all of that. So deny ICMP echo requests going outbound or replying to the broadcast IP address is a great way to prevent against Smurf, Fraggle attacks. And at a high level, if you can be familiar with Smurf attack being ICMP driven, Fraggle attack being UDP packet driven, and then TCP SYN attack, a large number of SYNs where the SYN-ACK allows the server or asset that's being targeted to go down, you'll be in really good shape. Speaking of security, how do we secure traffic as it relates to networking? IPsec, I'm not sure if you've heard of this or not, but stands for Internet Protocol Security. It's both a framework and a set of protocols for secure communication over networks. It defines a range of security services that can be provided, including confidentiality in the form of encryption, integrity in the form of hashing, and authentication in the form of digital signatures to further secure our network traffic. It's commonly used for VPN connections, allowing users to connect securely to a private network over the internet. TLS SSL that we have discussed on TCP port 443, used for secure communication over the internet. It's going to have encryption and authentication for data transmission between web servers and clients. So just wanted to call out two protocols and frameworks in use and kind of revisit how we're securing traffic going over the network. It wouldn't be a security module if we didn't discuss layered security. So we talk about this as the terminology related to defense in depth, and they always describe it as an onion, and the onion has multiple layers to it, and if you peel back all the layers, in the middle is the core of the onion, which represents all of our data that's highly classified, and it's what we're trying to protect at the end of the day. So starting at the outermost layer of the onion, this is where we have at our highest layer policies like user training, awareness about cybersecurity, having strong passwords, how to classify data, etc. If we went another layer down and peeled back the onion, we would get into physical security, which is our locks, fences, and security guards. If we peel that layer back, we go into our perimeter, so our firewalls and VPN and packet filters. If we didn't have that, we're another layer closer to the data at the core with going into our firewall or IDS systems, IPS systems. If we didn't have that layer of security, we'd be stuck with only 3 left, and we're down to the host layer. So we're going to have our EDR solutions on there, our AV solutions, our patches, malware protection, etc. And another layer down is app layer, so single sign-on, authentication, and authorization. And then in the middle, if we stripped all the layers off, is our data. So our critical content that we're trying to secure. And we create all of these layers so that if one is to fail, well, at least we have all these other layers built in to have multiple layers of redundancy to ensure protection is happening at multiple layers, not just at 1 or 2. It creates a better security hygiene for your environment, the more layers that you can protect data at, and the more fallback support you can have on if one of the layers seems to not work or isn't being implemented correctly. So just wanted to cover the onion that is the defense in-depth strategy that we try to apply to our organizations to ensure we have the most security, the most layers possible, and protecting our data to the best that we can in forms of CIA. This slide is a good wrap up to what I would really focus on about networking. I would have a strong understanding of the OSI model, be able to write out layer 1 through 7, and really have a strong understanding of what's going on at each layer with examples of each. Even better if you can describe some attacks at each layer and how they're applied to it, especially for troubleshooting as well. And network communication is just essential to understand. TCP/IP, the suite set of protocols that we've discussed as well for communication over the internet and other networks. Remember, this was NIDA instead of the OSI model, 7 layers. Routing and switching, got to understand what routers are, got to understand what switches are at a little bit more granular than just what their basic function is. I would have very strong answers for what the difference is between the two, the key buzzwords to keep in mind for each of them, and why they're essential network devices to have for our topology. And network security, obviously it's a critical aspect of any networking role you're going to go into. If you can understand some security topics to talk about, like firewalls or IDS systems, IPS systems, encryption, VPNs, any kind of technology that you can speak to that would secure the network against potential threats, especially if you're trying to land a job in cybersecurity, that would be a strong answer to have. So be sure you're grasping these key concepts here. These main 4 I think are really crucial. And as long as you have a strong understanding of these 4, you can get as more granular in your answer as you want and dive into depth into any of these areas that you find interesting or want to elaborate more on when it's asked on you for the interview question.